Hi, everyone. Welcome to this mini lecture on the purposes or goals of education. Common sense suggests that the goal of education is teaching and learning about our society and culture, right? But we are critical explorers and therefore must ask some tough questions. For instance, we learn that in a pluralistic society like ours, there are many philosophies or approaches to education. People have different and sometimes conflicting ideas about who we educate or what we teach and why. That being the case, it seems reasonable that we would have different or competing ideas about the purpose or purposes of education, right? Is education to prepare us for the work world, or maybe to make us knowledgeable citizens in a free and democratic society? Perhaps education's purpose is to help us move up in the world. For this topic, I've gathered two short videos for you to view. The first discusses Martin Luther King's vision about the purpose of education, and the second is a young and contemporary philosopher's thoughts on the purposes of education. Together with this mini lecture, I think they present a broad and mixed view of the purposes of education people have in mind. But first, I'm going to share some important ideas about the goals of education from Stanford professor David Labery. Labery described himself as a sociologically oriented historian of education who explores the tensions between education and society. In his article, Public Goods, Private Goods, The American Struggle Over Educational Goals, he describes three competing purposes of education. Let's take a look at those purposes now. To begin, Labery suggests one purpose of education is for democratic equality. Here, the goal of formal schooling is to prepare people to be citizens in the society. School is considered a public good or something that is created and sustained by the public for a public purpose. Labery suggests that, in order for a democracy to function, its citizens must learn about what a democracy is and what their responsibilities are. Next, Labery suggests another goal or purpose of education as a public good is that of social efficiency. Here, education is said to prepare people to become workers in the society so that the society functions efficiently. Personally, I find this purpose clearly expressed by the legislation and policy in adult education where I work. And moving on, Labery's third purpose is that school is used as a private good. People use schooling as a means to secure jobs and social positions. Schooling is about the individual more than the society. Maybe some of us, and I include myself here, think that this is the most important goal of education for ourselves. So, in sum, Labery writes about these competing purposes as a public good to educate and prepare citizens or workers, and as a private good for education to help us be more socially mobile. These purposes are said to be competing between education for the good of society and education for the good of the individual. Do you remember back in week 2 when we read the article about teaching in 2018 and all of those graphs and charts? Many of us were surprised to read that parents didn't want their children to become teachers. Which purpose of education do you think the parents were concerned with? Probably school as a private good for the social mobility of their children, rather than as a public good for the larger benefit of society, which certainly needs more teachers. So I'm going to leave you with these important ideas, and if you want to read more, I've included the full Labery article as optional reading. Enjoy the content.